Welcome to Food from Zanzi's Gather to Grow Twitter Spaces. This is, of course, a space for aspiring new farmers looking for information on how to either get into the agricultural sector or simply navigate the agricultural sector. Now, if you're a regular here at Gather to Grow, you probably would have picked up that I'm not Don Numdu. My name is Duncan Masiwa, the news editor at Food from Zanzi. Let's kick off tonight's session. It's all about keeping cattle healthy and happy this winter. And of course, we're focusing on livestock breeding and how to supplement feed this winter. I'm told that it's quite an important discussion. And for this one, of course, we had to get in a couple of experts to just break it down for us and pack it further. Of course, I'm joined by Gisela Bischoff, who is a ruminant nutritionist at ADM. And she's, of course, also joined by Clifford Zwake, who is the founder of MC Enterprise and, of course, an award-winning Free State farmer. And then, of course, we've also got Klaas Jan Low, who is an expert in animal nutrition at the Agricultural Research Council. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Clifford, seeing that your mic is unmuted, I think I'll kick off with you. Quickly, maybe just give us a brief introduction for those of us who might not know you. Who are you, where are you from, and what exactly is it that you do?
Okay, my name is Clifford Mtimkulu. I'm in the Eastern Free State in Senegal, a small town, the dryland. I'm a multiple award-winning commodity producer and a livestock producer. So I'm also into mixed farming. I do layers, broilers, and then I'm also now currently joining the feedlots.
Perfect. You said multiple award winner. I missed that. I'm sorry. Thank you so much for joining us, Clifford. Klaas, if you can also just briefly introduce yourself. Who are you? Where do you fit into the agricultural space for those of us who don't know?
I'm Klaas Jan Leeuw. I was born in the Netherlands and I came into the country in 1983. I obtained my degrees in the then Technikon and started working in 1987 at the now ARC at IRINI, doing feedlot research, and became later specialized in ruminant nutrition.
Awesome. And we, of course, look forward to just learning more from you on tonight's session with your background in the agricultural industry and, of course, your focus being livestock. Gisela, you also joined us. Maybe just introduce yourself, quickly give us a background and some information in terms of who you are, what do you do, and how exactly do you fit into the agricultural space.
So I'm Gisela Bischoff. I'm ruminant nutritionist at ADM Nutrition South Africa. I was raised on a farm in the Mpumalanga Highveld. So I joined the industry in 2007, starting as a nutritionist at a feed mill. I moved over to the premix industry in 2017, first in sales and later joining the technical team as nutritionist. Today, having 15 years of experience, it hardly ever felt like work if you have a passion for your industry and your customers like I do. So ADM is a global company with a footprint in more than 70 countries, working closely with our international colleagues. It put us as ADM in South Africa in a great position to be able to share the knowledge from our local experience, our global colleagues, and also our research facilities to provide to our customers. So through a 360-degree approach, which I'm not going to go into too much detail, our aim is not only to support and maintain our customers, but we are here to help them grow, to be more efficient, especially in the difficult agricultural times that we're currently in now. So that is our main aim, is to provide our customers with sustainable solutions.
And of course, ADM does the Lord's work when it comes to nutrition for livestock, of course. So thank you so much for joining us. I think I want to kick off the conversation, Clifford, with you being the farmer here in the group. I'll throw the first question to you. Maybe just kick us off with a brief overview of, the animal production cycle for livestock farmers in South Africa. What happens as the seasons change in specific regions? Maybe you can unpack that for us.
To compensate for nutrients that may not be available in our natural grasses during the dry off season, like let's say in winter, in order to ensure that animals have a good body condition and performance while they survive during the hot season, one has to understand the kind of forage that can be given to the livestock or animals during the difficulties of the winter. Because normally in the winter we have to supplement so that we can maintain the body. And again, it depends on the forage as well as well-planned your fodder flow is throughout the year, as well as the head size of your accommodate V as your capacity, of which is the GVA at, let's say, the LSU, livestock per unit, and then the small stock per unit. That also plays a vital role. And then you have to put, let's say, just one, I don't mention brands names, any other supplement, whether it's Molatech, whether it's Chernik, whether it's what, that you must give on winter so that you can supplement the nutrient content on the body of a livestock and thus the infrastructure. I think most of the problem is for people who are farming in common age. You'll find out that the livestock is getting grass, the water is 5 kilometers away, and then he has to be driven 3 kilometers away for some supplement. That alone distresses an animal because now it has to eat, go get water there, get supplement there. That alone plays a vital role in the growth of an animal. So if animals are kept in one place, a smaller place where there is water, there's supplements, and there's grass, it depends much easier for you to get the weight that you need and then the production that you need from a livestock.
I'm happy that you mentioned, commonage, farmers that farm on communage land. And of course, the difficulties that they experience when it comes to this specific topic. Gisela, I see you had your hand up there. Maybe you wanted to add something to what Clifford said.
Just a little bit more from a technical side. What happens in the grass quality, obviously the moisture drops a lot, so our felt quality goes down. A lot of times you have a lot of fodder, like he said, but also the lignin part, the undigestible part of the grass. That part increases as the grass matures towards the end of autumn. And that's why we supplement, is to make that undigestible, unpalatable grass, to put it in a place where you can use it. So we supplement so that we can use that undigestible and unpalatable grass during the winter.
And I suppose that brings me to my next question. What is the aim of supplementary winter feeding when it comes to livestock production?
So the use of a supplement is to provide the animal with the requirements that is not supplied by the field. So your supplementation depends on your condition and also your phase of reproduction or your lactating status of your animal. So typically during winter, you either give something to maintain the body condition or the increased production requirements.
Klaas, do you maybe want to add to that?
What is said is quite correct by both Gisela and Clifford. Maybe just more to add is, where the farmers practice a normal breeding season, which means the breeding season from January to maybe late February. The reason why we do that, so that the calves are born at the beginning of the rainy season. And it is very important that farmers understand is that during the last 3 months of gestation, the calf grows the most. So it's very important, and that's during winter time. And that's very important that the fetus has enough nutrition to develop properly. Therefore, supplementation during the later stages of winter is quite important. And most farmers tend to run in problems maybe due to veld fires. As Giselle indicated, the higher lignin content or the woody part of the grasses that become less digestible. So it's quite important that supplementation is done. And usually we talk about winter licks or protein licks for that period of time so that there's more protein for the bacteria to grow in the rumen, which then in turn makes the animal eat more grass and it becomes basically more grass, it has more nutrients uptake. So that is also an important part of it. In terms of feeding the supplements itself during that time, farmers must just make sure that the cattle can all eat at the same time. You tend to have your older cows that tend to bully the younger animals and they eat the most, while your younger animals need it the most. So I think I'll leave it for now for that part.
Gisela, you can go.
Like Klaas said, we supply them with protein, especially in the form of NPN sources, such as our urea. But we need to make sure that it's also supplied with enough energy to be able to utilize that NPN and puts the animal in position to actually digest and utilize the grasses.
Thank you so much, Gisela, and I appreciate the information that is being shared here. I do have a speaker at the moment, but before we go to that speaker, I just wanted to ask, Klaas, maybe you can add on to this. Of course, we know that climate conditions are changing. Climate change is a thing. I'm wondering, does this at all impact how farmers approach supplement feeding during winter?
The climate changing issue is basically more prevalent during summertime where we expect higher temperatures. So the temperatures might also increase in winter, but because that's from a lower base. So during wintertime, that can mean more drier period, less plant material available for the animals to graze. That's why, for the flow programs or for the bank on your farm becomes more important during wintertime. But the supplementation at summertime, will be then a different topic or a different discussion.
Definitely. And perhaps a follow-up session to the session that we're having. Clifford, I want to go back to you. We've heard the importance of supplement feeding during winter. You also briefly touched on that. As a farmer, on the ground, is there a guideline for farmers, especially those that are new into the sector? It's quite a lot of information to grasp. Is there a guideline for farmers? What would you say?
Duncan, you see, commercial farmers have got camps. There is a reason for that. It's not like on our communal lands where the livestock will just be running around, because where they feed or pee, they will never graze. And the limitation of the numbers in a camp, thus the rotation of the livestock through the camps. Reason being, let's say if one livestock, its feet, it's like your hand. Remember, when that livestock is standing with 4 of your hands down, of which that will be the grass that it will never graze. Remember where it's going to sleep, where it's going to do whatever. So hence, commercial farmers limit their number of livestock per camp, and they keep rotating so that when the rain falls, it washes away whatever that needs to be washed away, so that the same livestock can go to the same camp and still graze. But now, if you have one drinking drought, remember the route to that drought will always be like South Africa potholes today. So nothing will graze there. So that also, crop rotation, you must care for your land. You must care for your fences, because with livestock, if you don't get your infrastructure right, you're not going anywhere.
Thank you so much, Clifford, for that. Gisela, I want to just quickly run back to you. Clifford also alluded to it now. It's not a one-size-fits-all for farmers when it comes to supplementing livestock feed in winter. Let's talk about the type and volume of additional feed required. How does this change on the ground for farmers?
Like in the communal area, Clifford said, we have small and larger stock grazing together in one camp. It eases the management if you'd rather go with a product lower in urea, which is also safe for your smaller animals. So you would typically go with a production leak 20, 25 or the 30%, which are the ones on the market. So your typical intake on your sheep production licks, obviously you give that to your thinner animals and your animals in higher lactation and reproduction statuses as well. There the intake is around about 300 grams per sheep a day. Whereas in your winter lick, which you give for your maintenance animals that are already entering the winter in a good condition and you only need to maintain, there the intake on a winter lick for your sheep is around 150 grams per day. And then your cattle on the winter lick, normally it ranges around 400 to 600 grams. A lot of times the people see as the grazing decreases towards the end of the winter season, where the volume also decreases that they get from the grass, the intake on the lick increases. That's a time where you need to start looking at maybe supplementary feeding and not only at a lick. Whereas on your cattle that is lactating, as Klaas said, your end of your fetal growth, which requires a lot of energy, you would rather go to a production lick. There the intakes are around about 800 to 1.2 kilograms per day. And this per day supplementation should be given out once every second or third day, as one of the speakers already mentioned. Otherwise, your dominant cows continuously go to the feed troughs and your less dominant animals never get to the lick trough. So that's why over a period of 2 or 3 days, even that shy eaters, they get a chance to go to the troughs. Something that is very, very important with your lick supplementation is enough feed trough space. Don't give all of the lick in one trough where only 5 animals can eat at one stage. Please provide them with enough feeding space.
Is there anything that you can add, Gisela, when it comes to feeding intervals? Is that quite important?
Yes, it is. Because you don't want your lick to stand in the sun and the wind the whole time. So a period of 2 to 3 days. So every second or third day is a very good regime to get into. And then you provide them with, for instance, you put out 400 or 500 grams per cow per day. So you give 1.5 kilograms for each animal for that 3-day period. That's how you would typically put it out. And also remember, you also give your winter licks through your August period when it's normally windy. You don't want that dust, then your intakes will decrease a lot. So you would increase your intervals by that time. On our farm currently, there's a thunderstorm in the air. So people start providing the animals with the urea licks already, but there is still loose thunderstorms that we are going to have until the beginning of winter, or even the loose thunderstorm in the wintertime. Winter licks and licks containing urea and NPN. If it gets wet, that water dissolves the urea, and that is poisonous to the animals. If an animal drinks that, it is fatal. So there your lick trough management should be very good. Either you should throw out that lick for the water to go into the soil, or you should keep your lick troughs empty if you see there's a thunderstorm. That's just a general management issue of your winter lick troughs. And then also something that a lot of people do forget a lot of times is adaptation, like in your feedlot, where we have the starter phase, we have adaptation period. Whenever you go from a summer lick or a non-protein containing lick or a non-urea containing lick to your urea or NPN containing licks, you must have a period of adaptation, because it's a lot more palatable because of the energy sources in that production. And winter licks, you can have overeating, and then you can also have your animals dying. So please, proper adaptation when moving over from a summer lick to your winter lick or your production lick.
That's definitely important information that you just shared there. And it also answers the question, adding to what Klaas said about the climate and how that also impacts how farmers approach, of course, supplementing their livestock's feed during the winter. We've got another speaker here, but before I just go over to Itani, thank you so much for joining us. Clifford, maybe you can just let us in on how you approach it on your farm.
I only give licks Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And if I see the storm, if I know there's urea, I'll have to go clean the feed droughts, because I know the same urea can become fatal to the same animal that I was feeding it. It's my method I would like to share with you guys that I do. If I see I've got 1 week camp with no lot of grass, you know what I do? I'll mix my feed with the seed of the grass, because when the cow dungs, it's wet, thaws the seed, so the seed grows. So in a way, I can also plant with the same animal on the same camp.
Wow, okay, I love that. And I see, Atani, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us, are you a new farmer in the livestock industry? Are you planning to join the agricultural space? Tell us who you are and share with us your comment or question.
I'm a small farmer. I'm a startup. The reason why I joined this platform, I know there's so much to learn. It's just that sometimes I do miss this opportunity to log in at some point. But just have a question, though. I might be deviating from the topic, but I understand there might be people who might be able to respond to my question.
I can hear you, Clifford.
I just wanted to leave a quote. A cow will give a milk to the whole village, but it does not make noise. But when a hen lays just 1 egg, that can even feed 1 child. It crows and makes a noise the whole village just because of 1 egg. So for most of our farmers to think on the LSU, because that's where most of our money and production comes from.
Thanks, Clifford, for sharing that. But Itani, you can unmute your mic again and just complete the thought.
I might be deviating from the topic, but I just want some assistance from the members here. I just want to check, what are the common diseases that tend to arise during winter season, if there's any? And what are the booster shots that maybe we can provide to your weaker stock? Because I know during winter the grass is dry and they tend to lose weight in that regard. But just want to bring that just for assistance in that regard, if there's any.
If I heard you correct, your question is, what are the common diseases that arise during winter? And of course, livestock diseases. And also, what can you feed weaker livestock during this period?
Correct.
Klaas, do you maybe want to take that question?
During wintertime, there's not so much on diseases. I think the biggest issue in the wintertime is the dust because of the dry season. Talking specifically of the winter dry seasons. So dust and lung diseases might be a bigger problem. And some bacterial infections. Most of the diseases are related to the warmer summer periods. I must admit that I'm not a veterinarian, so I would love to have a veterinarian on the podcast here, but that is not happening. So let's continue. And then in terms of the nutrition, I think Giselle talked earlier about this quite well. And I think quite important that you provide supplement feed to the weaker animals. And I think as a follow-up on that one, I would recommend to each of the farmers that they get basically a chart that indicates how to score the animal in terms of body conditioning score. The body conditioning score will give you very good indication of when to supplement. Most of the time I propose a 5-point scale. There are 7-point scale systems also, but I prefer the 5-point scale. And if you score your animals based on body condition and using that graphic, then you can also determine when to start with supplement feeding your animals and not wait too late, because it can have a negative impact on the cows in terms of their pregnancy and your overall production of your herd.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Klaas, for responding to Itani's question. Gisela, I want to quickly go over to you, feed intervals and, just some of the strategies that farmers can incorporate. What are some of these strategies that farmers can incorporate into their farming practice if we think of penning animals, feeding regime duration, feeding intervals, all of those? What can you tell us?
With penning the animals, especially during night or in periods when your natural grazing are decreasing, I would definitely suggest adding ad-lib hay to your pens. And depending on the body condition, like Klaas said, animals in better condition can go on throughout the winter with ad-lib hay in a bale in that camp, together with your lick supplementation. But if the body condition has dropped too much, you should really start looking at a complete feed. So then you would rather go to a feed rather than a supplementation. And then a comment on that body condition score and when to start supplementing. There's a lot of research that's been done on it's more economical to keep your animals in a good body condition score 12 months of the year than to only try and supplement them and to gain that body condition score, because one body condition score is a lot of weight that animal needs to gain again. So it's a lot more economical to maintain with a summer lick or a phosphate lick through the summer or the rainy season, and then going on to a winter lick and then later on to a production lick, than to only try to supplement only when the animal has already gone off on the body condition score. So keep that in mind in the bigger picture. Don't only supplement when the condition is already down.
Perfect. And I'm happy you touched there briefly on the costs, when it comes to supplementing livestock feed during the winter. Gisela, maybe just quickly back to you. What are the costs involved? It can become quite an expensive exercise, especially for small-scale farmers and especially for farmers that are farming on commonage land. What are the cost implications when it comes to tonight's topic?
Duncan, that depends on a lot of aspects. Obviously, there's a lot of products in a cooperation. I myself do not work with the end product costing as much, but the customers must be very careful while they are in the co-op to be sure what they pay per nutrient. That's what I always train our customers, which is a lot of home mixers as well as feed mills. So we look a lot at the price per nutrient. Say, for instance, one bag is a 30% protein and the other one is a 40% protein, and you're looking at a lick for your cattle. You should work out or calculate what is your price per percentage protein that you're going to pay, because that's how you calculate what the value for your money is that you're going to get. Also, your animals shouldn't eat more than what the suggested values are, because then you are also actually overpaying above your budget that you provide. And also, what is very expensive is providing the wrong type of lick by always choosing the cheaper lick. So cheap is not always the best, and expensive is not always the correct one. It's not as easy as just telling you this is the cost, but the customer should really look at what is the value that they are getting. The more natural protein that's in the product, the better the product, the less is from NPN sources, and obviously the higher the price per protein will be, but the value that you add to your cattle through a specific high quality lick that you get from a feed mill, that's where you should add and calculate your cost. Not necessarily at the cost per 40 or 50 kilogram bag, but what is in the bag.
I love that, definitely. And of course, there you have it. Cheap is not always the best route to go when it comes to supplementing your livestock feed for winter. Klaas, I'd like to maybe just hear from you. You've been in the industry for quite some time, for a couple of years. What are some of the common mistakes that farmers make when it comes to supplementing livestock feed in winter?
As Giselle just said, it's quite costly if you provide the wrong supplement. So it's always important to talk to the representative of people like ADM, Giselle's colleagues, and get the right information. And the other thing is that I want to mention as well is that the farmer must not allow the cows to eat only lick, and then you're missing out on the cheapest resource. If you need to supplement the feed because of the needs of the animals, then that's fine. But you must not replace your pastures with supplementation, because that pasture remains your cheapest feed resource. It is very important to look at that. And with some farmers, as indicated earlier as well, they don't provide enough trough space for the cattle to eat. So what you can do there is maybe, split the herd in a number of groups, young group animals and an older group, and feed them separately. Your older animals, although they still need feed, they don't need to eat all the feed for the young animals as well. So if you can feed your less dominant animals separately from your dominant animals, it will be always a good thing. And then provide enough trough space and make sure that there's always clean water available nearby so that they don't get thirsty of the salt that is in the licks, and then there's no water for them to drink. So that will also reduce the intake of the lick a little bit.
Yeah, definitely valuable information that's sharing there with us. It all sounds like very basic information, but it's often the basic information that we end up forgetting. Clifford, I see you back. What are some of the common mistakes that farmers do or do make that, when it comes to supplementing their livestock feed during winter?
One of the problem, Duncan, is overfeeding, number one, and then less feeding and overcrowding your animals in a space. Number two, animals hate temperament, because you find that there are people that will take animals to the kraal. When they take them, they'll be hitting them with a stick. Let me tell you, the way the cow is so sensitive, even if a fly sits on it, you'll see its body shivering. So imagine if you take a stick and you hit that person. He will never come to that lick that you are pouring. The other thing is temperament, facility, handling of your livestock, mentoring your livestock, being part of your livestock almost 3 or 2 times a week so that they get used to you. They get used to your baki or whatever that you take the lick with, so that they can bring themselves knowing that what are you bringing.
And it's definitely important, I've had this conversation with a couple of farmers around livestock handling. It seems to be quite a problem, not just in South Africa, but across the world when it comes to handling livestock and handling cattle. I think it's definitely one of those things that as a publication, Food from Zanzi will be looking into, and just, sharing some, I would suppose, do's and don'ts when it comes to livestock handling. We are wrapping up the session. We have had a great session on how to supplement livestock feed this winter. If maybe just to end off, Gisela, I'll come to you, class as well, and Clifford. What is your final notes when it comes to this specific topic? Something that we might have missed throughout this session. Gisela, I'll start with you.
I think we covered a lot of it, but I would like to leave following comment with the listeners is to provide the correct supplement at the correct time. That's what I want to leave with them.
Definitely. Clifford?
For me, is to say, it doesn't mean when you eat, you have to make your stomach full. You just need certain nutrients.
There you have it. That's on Clifford. Class, anything from you before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think we talk mostly about, more towards commercial farming and less maybe about communal farming. So in communal farming, it's very difficult for the cow owner or cattle owner to provide supplement when the animals are grazing. So they must always try and supplement in their homestead yard. And that way, they can look after their own animals also during winter time.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Clifford, class, Gisela, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Unpack this a bit further for us here on Gather to Grow. It has definitely been an insightful conversation. Like I said, if it's your first time joining us, we gather to grow here discussing various topics around the agricultural industry. And it's mostly a space for, aspiring farmers or those that are just looking for information on how to get into the agricultural industry. Thank you once again so much for joining us. My name is Duncan Masiwa, and we'll definitely see you next week. Have a great week.